but I can't.
You can't pick out a single Hopfen?
I can't.
Just the single Hopfen?
I can't, my friend. Not yet. Maybe in another.
How dare you?
No, I
You
know.
terrible beer reviewer. Welcome back to Beer Brackets, everybody, and thanks for joining us in the pub. Thanks for coming to hang out in the Beer Brackets pub today with me and Alessandro. It's a big one, and you know, if you've ever been to a grocery store in your life, you probably know this beer. You've probably seen it on the shelves. This beer's everywhere.
It is.
We were just talking about this.
It
right
really,
now. Like,
it really is.
The distribution. The distribution that Bitburger has is just absolutely insane. This is every corner store from Montreal to Tampa, Florida, to I'm sure all over Europe. You can find this. It's a very historic beer, and this is one that we've wanted to do for a really, really long time. We've actually been talking about reviewing Bitburger since we started the channel 4 years ago because Alessandro has an interesting connection to it, which we will get to in just a second.
That's right.
So from the town of Bitburg, Germany, their premium Pils. Oh, buddy, I think it's going to be beer story time. I'm going to sit back a little bit here. I'm going to stretch and do my beer stretches.
It's important to do your stretches.
That's right.
It all goes back to my childhood. I am originally from Italy, but I'm actually half Danish. And during the summer, when I was a kid, we would always, with my family, go visit my grandparents up in Denmark. When my grandma passed away, my grandfather started coming more often to live with us in Italy, but still during the summer he would travel with us, and we would go up still to Denmark. He still had a house over there, and we would go and visit for the summer. During the trip, what we would do is that we would take the car, drive all the way up to Basel. It's right at the border between Switzerland and Germany. We would get the car on the train, and we would take the overnight train, sleep in the train, and then get off in Hamburg and then drive the rest of the distance. And you might wonder, well, that's a long story. Where are we going with this? Well, during this trip, we would always have dinner in the train. And I have this clear, distinct memory of my grandfather always ordering a beer with dinner. And it always ended up being the Bitburger. So I clearly remember, it wasn't a bottle. And I clearly remember sitting there as a kid and looking at the bottle and seeing the logo with all and that's just in my head. When I became a little older and I started enjoying the beer, I always would think about those trips and connection with my grandfather.
Such a beautiful beer story, man.
Oh, thank you.
Such a beautiful beer story. And it's, it's interesting. And it sounds so ceremonial, and I love that, right? And that's part of the beauty of beer. I'm sure your grandfather associated this beautiful trip, getting on the train with his family, finally settling in, having dinner, and you would always have maybe his favorite beer, maybe not, maybe just the beer that they offered on the trains that he liked the most, but having, that Bitburger with dinner with his family, and just, it's beautiful. It is. Beautiful beer memories of beer exploration. It's just the best.
It is, my friend. Best. So I'm glad I got to an opportunity to tell that story because it always makes me smile, always makes me very happy. So
oh, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you got to tell it again because it's a cool story. A story of Alessandro's past, his childhood. Historic brewery in the sense that they've been around since 1817. So they've been around the block. So now there's one thing that I did want to mention, my friend, that I think was very pertinent to us enjoying this beer and us experiencing this beer fully, that they really stress on their website. They have a beautiful website, by the way. You should definitely go check that out. But according to Bitburger, and this could be beer conjecture. This could be a beer legend in itself. I don't know. You tell me what you think about it. But they made a bold statement. Okay, so on the Bitburger website, it says that there are very few places in the world where you can properly grow hops. This is what it says. Very few places. Now, I'm sure the U.S. would take offense to this. I'm sure, many other beer-producing countries might say, oh, that's, I don't agree with that, right? I'm sure they would. But they make this claim, and they say that the best parts are of course, in Germany. Of course. Of course. That's where the best hops come from. Right. According to German beer legend.
According to German,
I'll put a little amendment on that. German beer legend.
I will say though, like you gotta be at least a little biased when you're making beer and say like we have
True.
the best hops. Of course we do.
Yeah.
That's part of the spirit.
So they say one of these two areas is, of course, like the Hallertau hops in Bavaria. So that's one of them, right? And of course, Hallertau hops are used worldwide in all different styles of beer. You see them pop up everywhere all the time. So I'll buy that. And the other is called the Siegelhopfen, which is a type of hop that comes from the area right near Bitburg, where the Bitburger beer is from. And so that's interesting. So what I like about this is that it's famously like a blend of these two style of hops. You have the can as well, right? You see that little crest, like that little circular mark, like the stamp, pushing that idea of the two hops, the two German hops coming together, and that's the basis of this Pilsner here. But that's something to keep in mind when we're reviewing it and we're enjoying this beer, or you at home are drinking it. Think about the purity of these German hops and their claims that they're the best in the world.
That's pretty bold statement, but also I will argue that having a little bit of a legend and a little bit of a background to it, I don't know about you, my friend, but it always makes the beer taste much, much better. So thank you for
it always
enlightening
does.
us.
It always does.
This beautiful
100%.
story. Yeah.
I love that they make these claims. I love that they're confident about their hops and their beer culture and their beer history. I think everybody should be. Why not, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of this is subjective. So, like, if you go ahead, make the claim. Who cares, right? Say you grow the best hops. Why not? Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
We will find out.
So back in 1817, I mentioned that's when this brewery was founded, my friend. A true historic beer explorer named Johann Peter Wallenbohr opened a small rural brewery in Germany, out in the countryside, a forest beer, if you will.
Forest beer. I knew it. Knew it.
You knew.
It's a forest beer.
You knew it was coming.
We caught another one, my friend,
It's
without
coming.
even knowing we found another forest beer.
And so this brewery and their beers remained pretty much a forest beers for a good, let's say 60-ish years, until in 1880 when bottled beer became very popularized. And so the distribution and selling of bottled beer became a thing. And that's when Bitburger started to be sold throughout Germany and the rest of Europe. And at the time, they would have individual bottles that were corked. Right? They weren't capped at the time.
Nice.
And in 1883 was when they brewed the Pilsner for the first time. So the Pilsner itself doesn't go all the way back to 1817. But in 1910, right, they built the railway to Bitburg, Germany. This opened up a whole other world of options. But what they did that was really interesting, that maybe made them stand apart a little bit, was they custom built insulated train cars to transport the beer and keep it fresh. So they were able to transport their beer further than anybody else in the region at the time, which helped Bitburger get out there and get its name spread in the beer world.
That is very, very smart.
That's our beer history for today. A little bit of a background on Bitburger.
That's very smart. Thank you, my friend, for
Right?
putting that together and
Ingenuity.
and guiding us through the very long history of Bitburger. That it's not easy to condense that and like you did.
Thank you. Consider me your beer Sherpa. Let's go. Okay, we got to get into
Let's
this.
do
I'm
it.
very excited.
Let's do it.
Ooh. Remind me, have we reviewed a German Pilsner? We've reviewed German lagers.
We reviewed German lagers. Is this the first Pilsner we review from Germany?
I think this might be the
think
first
it might
official
be.
review of a German Pilsner.
I think it might be, my friend. Good call there.
Because all the Hofbräu beers, those were all lagers. Oh no, Paulaner Pils.
That's right. That's right. Oh, I'm
All right,
so
man.
excited for this. Cheers.
Yeah.
Aroma, cheers.
Here's to you, buddy. What do you think? Oh, I thought I cleaned my glasses really well, and there's still some bubble residue on there. That's disappointing. I always like to have the crystal clear glasses for the reviews, you know?
I really like the foamy head that it has. It's very fluffy looking. I know that's not a category, but it just I wanted to point that out. It looked very nice in the glass.
Aesthetics?
Yeah.
Aesthetics, full points.
Yeah, right. It's
Definitely.
very nice and clean, very nice fluffy head.
Yeah.
I love the smell. It's just very classic and clean. I think it has all the elements that you expect from a Pilsner. and specifically a German
Yeah.
Pilsner, because it's not clearly like a Saaz hops. It's
Right,
more
yeah.
of the Hallertau. I obviously can't distinguish between the two varieties. Like, I'm not that good, but I can.
You can't pick out a single Hopfen?
I can't.
Just the Siegel Hopfen?
I can't, my friend. Not yet. Maybe in another.
How dare you?
No, I
You
know.
terrible, terrible beer reviewer.
After a few more years, my friend, we might.
I knew right away. Right away. Like, that's a Siegel Hopfen.
But what I like about it is that it has this clean malt presence. It's not processed malt. It's very crackery and clean, and hops. Very, very clean and identifiable. All of the aboves are just like inviting you in the glass. And I love when you have that experience. I just can't wait to drink it. So I'm going to start with the 2.5, my friend. And I think the only reason why I'm not going up to a 3 is because I think the overall character of it is almost like a little muted. I would almost want a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, these beers brewed according to the purity law. You have water, barley, hops. Like, that's the only ingredients on here, right? So like you said, no adjuncts, nothing on there that's making it smell overly sweet, kind of like overly processed. There's no like corny smells that you get off like some mass-produced, let's say, North American Pilsners. So it's very clean, but very subtle. That's one thing about this beer. It's very, very subtle. It's meant to just be clean, easy drinking. That's the appeal of it. Yep. I appreciate you going up to a 2.5, and I completely understand why. I think just because of the lack of character there, it smells just clean, fresh. You definitely get the hops, a little bit of malt, but I too would like a little bit more. So I'm going to go with a 2 to start off with.
That's fair.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Let's take a taste.
Cheers to you.
Let's see what we think. Oh yeah, those hops.
Bitte ein Bit.
I haven't had one, a Bitburger, in so long.
Oh, it's nice.
It's good, right?
It's very good. Yes, it's a classic flavor. I don't know how to better describe it. It's something.
Yeah.
When you think about the iconic beer, classic beer that you can imagine, like it's those flavors with a distinct like German twist to it.
I agree with you 100%. Like if I had to say, like a beer,
yeah,
like a stereotypical archetype of a beer,
yes,
it would be this.
That's checks all the boxes. Like you have the clean malt character. It's not processed. It's clean, not overly sweet. It has that nice bitterness without being overpowering. So you just taste it right at the end to cleanse your palate. Classic German hops. It's refreshing. I find that actually very well done. And again, keeping in mind how easily accessible this beer is, I think on the taste, my friend, I'm going to go with the 3. It might be maybe just some elements of nostalgia. I always like to bring it in. Like there's some elements of the taste that can always influence that. But honestly, you take a sip of it and I can't think of anything that I don't like. It's just like classic and clean.
Again, very faint, beautiful, like a beautiful toasty character from the barley. Like very, very fresh, very nice. Almost like a fresh piece of just like dry toast. No butter on it. You pop a piece of bread in the toaster.
Yes.
You take a bite of that with nothing on it. The hops are very bitter in a great way, as a Pilsner should be, I think.
Yeah. But
it's so fresh at the same time. It's and so subtle. I'm going to go with a 2.5. For me, a 3 in a role of the Pilsner, there'd be just a little bit more character on there. Just me personally, subjectively, I like that. But wow, it's good. Okay, so mouthfeel refresher.
There it is.
Tradition. Let's do it. And by the way, I know it was mentioned in the graphic of our little beer void pour shot there, but it is 4.8% ABV.
Ooh, that's a good point, my friend.
So a relatively light Pilsner. Anything under 5, you're kind of bordering that light beer category a little bit.
That's so good.
It's so good.
It is. It's just, you described it well. Like it's almost like the archetype of beer when you picture that classic glass, the frothy head, like it's nice ice cold, like in the mug, and you imagine
in like its purest form.
Yes, exactly, in the purest essence. I gotta say they've achieved something pretty special here. I think the carbonation is very lively. The bubbles are clean. They really cleanse the palate after you take a sip. I will say there is, after the carbonation rolls off. Like there is a ever so slightly little bit of I wouldn't call it stickiness, but a little almost like oily feeling on your palate. I think I'm gonna go still with the 2.5. What do you think, my friend?
It definitely is somewhere in between that crisp carbonation and something that's a little bit heavier and a little bit oily. But you know what? I like that because for a 4.8% ABV beer, it gives it a little bit of character.
It does.
The fact that it's a little bit heavy with a little bit of oiliness, like it gives it some presence. I'm actually torn with this. I'm not sure where to place this in terms of mouthfeel because I'm really enjoying it.
It's a beer mystery, my friend. It's unassuming when you crack it open, but then you start drinking it and you say, "Wait a minute."
I got two things I'm going to do here.
All right.
One of them I have never done before. First thing, I'm going to score the mouthfeel.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 3-on-3 for the mouthfeel because I don't know what it is, but I think just how I just described it, I think like that little bit of oiliness that you mentioned, that little bit of stickiness works perfectly for what it is. For the low ABV that it is, I think it gives it some oomph, which I really appreciate. But also, the hops create like this astringent character that like tingles your tongue a little bit. It's very, you can feel the bitterness in your mouth when you take a sip, and all those things together are super interesting for me, and it's like archetypal Pilsner mouthfeel for me. It's a 3-on-3. The second thing I'm going to do right now that I've never done before is I'm going to change the score.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
What's the protocol here?
In all the reviews, this has never happened. The Aroma, I scored it a 2. You gave it a 2.5. The longer the beer has been open and I've been swishing it around, the aroma's gotten a lot more present. I think just initially pouring it out, because sometimes with these beers, like the initial explosion of head that you get, the head like mutes the aroma a little bit.
Yeah.
You know
I see what you mean.
Like
Yeah,
seal.
Definitely.
But as like the head dies down and the beer gets a little bit more exposed, sometimes the aroma comes out a little bit more when it has a chance to breathe. And right now, like all I can think about is the aroma on this beer. Every time I pull it towards my face, it's amazing. It's just everything emphasized a little bit more. It's just the breadiness, beautiful, fresh barley breadiness. I'm gonna up it to a 2.5 to match you. So
look at that, man.
I'm changing my aroma score.
Hey, that's awesome, man. I'm glad it's happening on the Bitburger. It's a beer bracket first. So cheers to that, my friend.
Yeah, man. Finish. What do you think?
You know how we always say, like, a lot of times with lagers and Pilsner, it can be a little difficult to find descriptors. I will say that this beer is quite surprising because it's almost like every sip I take, it changes, like, and it's showing a slightly different angle to it. And it's very complex in bitterness, that astringency. It's quite pleasant coming from that, like, clean carbonation. And I can see what you mean with the oiliness giving it a little bit of presence. So I agree with you. A lot of times, if the beer is too quick on the finish, like it's almost leaving you wanting, and sure, you can drink more, but it's almost like missing a part. But here, it has like enough of that astringency, and then that malt present with that beautiful crisp malt that has like almost like a crackery, and those two elements just stay, and they slowly fade, right? Like, so they're refreshing enough, but present enough to invite you back into the glass.
Yeah.
Man, it's done so well. Like, so I don't know. Like, I'm gonna stick with the 2.5, man. And I would almost want like a little something extra there, like that's just like, you know, I wasn't expecting. And I know that's unfair to say, but for what it is, like I think a 2.5 is extremely well done. And yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, that's a very, very high score for what it is.
What do you think?
You described it perfectly. I mean, there's a little bit of that toasty burnt bread there. The characteristics I think are just very consistent. Like you're not, like you said, you're not going to find any surprises on any part of the way here. Yep. Like the hops really come out on the finish on this beer. Like on the taste, I think there's like a little, you know, it's a little bit more a barley focus, but on the finish, it's really just those beautiful, beautiful German hops. And you know, this beer is surprising me, man. I think a lot of times I drank it either straight out of the can. I don't think I've poured it out very often drinking this. I've never had it in the bottle, but I've definitely had it straight out of the can a couple of times. And that mutes things a little bit. But having it like this and letting it breathe and pouring it out, and this beer is really surprising me. Yeah, I'll match you on 2.5. Definitely. It's bitter to a point where it's like, it's almost like the Pilsner Urquell.
Yeah.
Where it's like this hit of bitter where you're like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And for a second, your brain's like, do I like that?
Yes.
You're like, yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening inside of my head too, my friend. Like I said, when every time you take a sip, it's like, wait a moment, and then, oh no, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, right. It's like it's pushing towards a point where like, oh, this might be a little off balance, too bitter. But then it's like, no, it's nice.
It's nice.
It disappears.
Well,
all right, man. Well, hey, as an overall beer experience from beginning to end for Bitburger Premium Pils, what do you think?
So I got to tell you, my friend, I was very surprised, like analyzing point by point of this.
Me too.
It's quite interesting how an extremely classic, clean, well done beer can deliver in terms of flavor, experience, and overall experience. Let's say that's probably the best way I can describe it. I will say that the experience tonight has been quite remarkable and surprising.
It has been.
But
it really has
if we add
been.
all those together, right. So if we add all of these together, for me, it comes down to a 3 because I think this is a beer that is pretty special to me. I find that it's very well representing that archetype of beer.
This is really interesting, and this is a really interesting beer experiment, what happened tonight, because I think for somebody who might not, if you're at the beginning of your beer exploration journey, maybe if you're somebody who's watching this, who's really into craft beer, not to say, we like craft beer as well, but I'm saying if you're like a craft beer enthusiast who might be just watching this review and thinking like, oh, Bitburger, I can get that everywhere. How good could it possibly be? Or I've had it before and it's really muted. Right. Or I thought it wasn't, that fully character, which was my preconceived notion of this beer coming into this too. You might be watching this thinking like, oh, these guys are rating it pretty high. But you know what? I find that super interesting. And my perspective on that is that when you do what we're doing and you're on this beer journey and you try all the beers, and so we've tried, and you've tried all the macro lagers, you've tried all the American Pilsners, the Canadian Pilsners, the Labatt Blues, the Molson Canadians. When you come back to something like this, as simple as it is, it allows you to appreciate the cleanliness of it. It allows you to appreciate the simplicity of it, and allows you to appreciate something that's done discreetly, but borderline perfectly. And I think that for anybody who might be wondering, like, why are these guys it's just Bitburger? Why are they scoring it so high? I'll go with a 2.5. I think it's not quite a 3 for me, but yeah, 2.5. This has been very surprising as a real, authentic German Pils. My God, yeah, this is right up there as one of the archetypes, man. So for Alessandro, it came out to a 4.5 on 5, which in our rating system is an outstanding beer. For myself, just a little bit lower, 4.33 on 5, but it's still in that outstanding beer category. So we rated it basically the same. This was amazing. This was so much fun. We've been meaning to get to this. I'm so happy that we eventually did, and we didn't put it off any longer because, man, this was surprising.
I agree, my friend. And honestly, I like the analysis and the way you presented it in the overall, how you explained it. I think there's something to be said about simplicity and classic flavors. And I think the more beers you try, the more you appreciate when somebody does something simple very well. And I think that's something that Bitburger has demonstrated here tonight, I think, at least to us.
Let us know what you think about it down below. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, everybody in the pub. And whatever you do, there's a beer bell down there. You can click that beer bell. What that does, it lets you know when we're hanging out in the pub. So you're not a slave to the algorithm. Depending on that, YouTube will let you know when we're hanging out. And we do this once a week. So if you want to come back and hang out with us, join the friend group. Come hang out. Grab a beer in the pub. Bring your favorite beer. Let us know in the comments down below what you're drinking while you're watching.
It's always good to find new ideas. Maybe we might be able to, if we can find it, we might be able to review it. So always never be shy. And no matter what you do, don't forget to close your beer brackets.
Never forget. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.